Morning, everyone. That was a little bit quicker to start than I thought it was going to be. I thought it'd be a countdown or something. But hello. Hope you're all doing well. So we're live. Marvelous. So what are we doing today? Today we're going to be brewing a commander deck. There's some cool ones from Aether Drift that I just haven't really had a chance to put together yet or to do videos on. So I thought we might as well go live, have a little chat, and build a deck. The cat is joining us today, or at least until she kind of gets bored and wants to sprint around, as is her right. But let's jump over. Today, we are building Gonti, Knight Minister. It is 2 black for a 3/4 legendary creature, Aetherborn Rogue. Whenever a player casts a spell they don't own, that player creates a treasure token. That's nice and cool. But the main reason we're here is for whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller looks at the top card of that opponent's library and exiles it face down. Then that player may they may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Mana of any type can be spent to cast a spell this way. So effectively, what this kind of is if anyone's ever seen or played against an Edric deck, you know, like the Flying Men in Simic deck, where kind of you hit people with a bunch of 1/1 flyers and you get to draw cards. This is kind of that, but you're doing it off of your opponent's decks, and that's kind of really cool. I really like Edric, but it does quite rightly have a kind of a reputation of just being one of the most just broken commanders out there. Like, it's a very kind of budget deck that you can build very strong very easily. But Gonti is kind of a nice little twist of this, because you're not building it with your own deck. You're not building it. Oh, goodbye. You're not building it about going like ham with your own deck. You're planning on stealing a bunch of stuff from your opponent's decks, and that's kind of really cool. Also, I opened one at pre-release, so I now own the card, which is kind of always a kind of like 50% of a reason why I end up building commander decks. So the plan for today is we're going to go through and basically build this deck. I'm going to be here for about an hour or so. I'm doing this before I start work. So we kind of have a hard cut at 9 because we actually have to do the day job. So yeah, let's jump in and build Gonti. And also drink tea. I'm only like this much awake so far. So the the energy levels will increase as the tea is more consumed. But for any deck tech, the main thing I like to start with is kind of building the set skeleton. So importantly, basically just working out what the deck is going to look like, how it's going to be built. With this Gonti deck, we know it's going to be similar to an Edric deck, which I have built before, so that is a bit of a help. So let's write this in the description so we can actually reference it later. But I know we're going to want about somewhere between 18 and 24 flying men. I don't actually know how many flyers are in mono black, but we will be looking for them in a moment. So we'll start between 18 and 20. These numbers will get adjusted as we go through, but I think this is a good place to start. What else do we want? So card draw, as always, 8 to 10. 80 to 10. That would be impressive. Interaction, 8 to 10. Interaction is like removal and board wipe, so I kind of combine them into one, but that's not too bad. Protection. This deck is one that really cares about having the commander in play. It's really a big source of card advantage. It's a big engine. It's a whole lot of reason why we're playing the deck. So we are going to want a bunch of protection. Probably going to be somewhere between 4 to 6 would be my gut. What else? Win cons. There are some cool ways that we can win the game. There's actually one of the reasons that I like this deck being moved over into black is that there's a bunch of different ways that you can take advantage of the playing stuff off of your opponent's libraries. There's been a couple of cards. I think there was like Brain Stealers or that kind of stuff in what do you call it? In one of the Dungeons and Dragons sets. And then recently over the last year or so, with like the commit crime stuff, there's more cards that reward you for stealing stuff from your opponent's deck. So those are going to be in our win cons. And also because we're mono black, in any kind of mono black deck, I do like having like the big, like oddly, a mono black deck is better at ramping than a Simic deck is. And because we can spend mana of any color to play the spells that we're nicking from our opponents, we're just going to make an ungodly amount of black mana. If we're doing that, we might as well run something like an Exsanguinate or something like that. So that will also be in our win con section. It's just a nice little... effectively, it doesn't super synergize with the deck, but it is a haymaker, and I do like having just like a way in the deck of just winning the game, as it were. And then, obviously, this does stuff with treasure, so we will have a little bit of treasure interaction, maybe artifacty based. Treasure matters. So let's stick this here, probably 4 to 6. Alright, let's just quickly check what that adds up to. This is normally the stuff I cut out when I make deck text, but hey ho. We are here today, you're seeing it all live. Plus 5. That's about 50 or so cards. That's a kind of a good place to start. Yeah, worst case, we'll just add some more flying men, because to an extent, we are going to be taking cards off of our opponent's decks. So normally the way the Edric deck would win is with like an Overrun or a Crater Hoof, that combined with taking multiple turns. Actually, I'll bring up Edric just so you all know what I'm talking about. The deck anyway. This elf roguey lad, I'm sure, the bane of many a commander table. But this one also takes a bunch of extra turns. We can't really do that in mono black, but we can just play a bunch of awesome mono black cards that reward us for being in mono black. So that will kind of fill the gap that the overrunny style effects. Although actually I do have one cool overrun effect that I do want to add to this deck, which I think is an awesome one. But we don't really have extra turn stuff. That's going to be replaced by like some cool mono black big mana shenanigans. Alright, so let's jump in. First thing we need to do is actually add Gonti to the deck. This seems like a reasonable thing to do. Gonti, Night Minister. In the deck, marvellous. I'll probably go about tagging a bunch of this stuff afterwards just so we can keep track of it, but not while we're making the video, just because that's a bit of a faff to do. Alright, so now we need some flying men. So this is... Flying Men is shockingly named after the card Flying Men. It is a single blue for a 1/1 human with flying. In an Edric deck, this is everything you want. You want cheap, evasive creatures that go through and... basically, you don't care how much damage they're doing to your opponents. You just care that they are doing that damage. That's what Gonti cares about. Gonti doesn't care how much damage we do to our opponents. It cares that we do that 1 point of damage on as many creatures as possible. So we're going to be using Scryfall a lot for this. We will do the safety check on EDH Rec afterwards, but I never really like starting on EDH Rec, because then you kind of... I kind of find that decks kind of become a bit homogenized by doing that. If people want to start on EDH Rec for their own decks, crack on, but I kind of like the process of going through Scryfall and doing a bit of the manual labor yourself. So we're going to go to Advanced, we're going to go under Commander, we're going to select Black. This will make sure that will show us everything that we can run in our deck. We're not going to pick Colors Black, we're going to pick Commander Black, because there will be some colorless cards that we can run. Alright, let's just search for good old flying creatures first. So you see here we have like 7 drops. We don't want 7 drops. We're going to sort by mana value. Yes, meow. Thank you, darling. I'm going to come up again. And then we're going to find some creatures. So some people might think, oh, Ornithopter perfect in this deck. It's a 0 mana for a flyer. We actually need to deal damage, and the 0 power on that means it won't actually trigger Gonti, so that's a bit of a number. But let's keep going down. Let's see what we have. So we do want cards that naturally have flying. Also with this deck, I'm not super committed to a budget or a power level. I'm not going to put in cards that are just like hundreds of pounds needlessly. We're going to build this kind of as synergistic as possible, and then we'll see what tier or bracket it comes out in the wash, basically. Most of the decks I build will prop somewhere between 2 or 3, but I guess we'll see. If it's an easy change to make it a 2 or a 3, then we'll do that. Yeah, we'll go over some ways maybe if we have time that you can power it up. It's probably just going to be just add better mana, that kind of stuff. But these are the kind of cards that we're looking for this deck. Kind of Battlefly Swarm, Blightkeeper, these seem pretty solid. We want them to have naturally have evasion. We don't want to be paying mana for it, but something like Ethereum, Petramander, and Eye Collector. These are all pretty spot on. Yeah, Eye Twitch. Again, these are all what we want. These are all just cheap flying creatures that when we connect, Well, let us exile the top card of our opponent's library. We then get that card advantage, then we cast a spell, we get treasure, so we get more value out of it. This is all great. We do want a large amount of these in the deck, because we want to be hitting them. We want to be... In this deck, when we're playing it, ideally we want to go turn 1, 1 mana flyer. Turn 2, 2 1 mana flyers. Turn 3, 3 1 mana flyers. Turn 4, Gonti. Maybe a bit of ramp in there as well to help, but that's generally kind of like what we're thinking of with the curve. Because once we have Gonti out and all the flyers, whenever we start crashing into them, into our opponents, we'll then get card advantage from their decks. This also lets us play lands as well, which is just really, really good. So we love that. So we're going to make a note of all of these. I'm not putting all these in straight away because there are some stronger ones, which we'll get to in a moment. Ooh, Will-O-the-Wisp. This is a alpha card, isn't it? When was this printed? Ooh, I think it is. Right, so yeah, so you can have the Magic 25 edition for 13p, or you can have the alpha for about $700. Again, budget decks on this channel only. I think I need more tea after that. Terrible joke, apologies. Right, so we do have a bunch of options up here. We'll start adding them to the deck in a minute, but the next thing I want to look at before we jump into... or before we carry on with this is unblockable. That's the thing. There's a bunch of different ways that this can be worded. So let's search for unblockable. Let's spell unblockable correctly. I feel that's going to be important to this video and to the deck. It can't be blocked, isn't it? Yes, you're not. Be blocked. Maybe I should have drunk more of the tea before we started recording today. What the bloody hell is there? Alright, let's look up Shadow. We know Shadow creatures can't be blocked. Shadow is kind of like a weird version of flying. I'm a big fan of. These creatures generally aren't great, but they are vibey. I have a whole Shadows Matters deck, which I absolutely love. Yeah, we'll probably run a Dothy Voidwalker. That seems pretty hot. Nether Trader can come back. We like that. All right. Let's try. Be blocked. We can do this. We will find them. There we go. These are the ones we wanted. Right, yeah, we wanted Changeling, Outclassed, and Tormented Soul. Perfect. Those are the ones we were after. Yes, Meow. You want to come up? She just fell herself on the floor. Well, did the very cat thing of like, oh, you're going to pick me up. Blah. But she is the best cat, so we absolutely love that. All right. So we have a bunch here. Let's start adding them in. So Dothy Voidwalker is probably going to be the only, is one of the few twos. We do generally want these to be at 1 mana. That's generally where we want to be. So let's add Dothy Voidwalker, Nether Traitor. The Shadow is effectively unblockable. That's kind of where we're going with this. All right. So Changeling, Outcast. Love this. Yes, Meow. Is Changing Outcast a quid now? Wild. I know. Very expensive, isn't it? Right, let's keep getting these in. Right, now the flyers. Actually, Will-O-the-Wisp is an 0-1. We can't have Will-O-the-Wisp. Boo. I would normally be faster copying and pasting, but I have a cat on my arm. And as much as I love deck building, the cat does take priority over all, I'm afraid. But yeah, these cards are just so important. They're also incredibly cheap. Like, apart from what do you call it? Dothy Voidwalker. I can't imagine any of these are super expensive. So Hope of Giripur is a rare and hasn't been printed in a while, so it's like a £1.50. But yeah, 15p. Like, this is kind of where we actually we really get a bunch of this is what makes this deck and Edric kind of quite appealing to new players anyway, is because they can be quite powerful, the effects can be quite splashy, but you can run a bunch of really cheap cards in them, and that's really good and really appealing. So let's keep adding these in. We have a couple more. Ethereum, Petromander. Love it. Blight Keeper. So these are just going to be fantastic in the deck. These come down nice and early. They let us swing through. They trigger, they let us steal stuff from our opponent's decks. Again, with these kind of budgety decks, like, this is kind of cool because it will scale nicely against your opponents. Like, if your opponent has all the cool, broken, expensive spells, hooray, we can just steal them from them. Right, so we have 15 of those. I would kind of like one or two more. Let's see if there's anything here that looks like we can run. We might be going back to flying. Oh, can't be blocked. No, can't be blocked by walls. That's not helpful. That's actually really bad. Ooh, my regular alarm is telling me to wake up. Let's add another Dothy. This will bring us up to 15 of these. If we can find one more, I'm going to be a bit happier. So I think let's go back to flyers. We want at least one more, I think, here. I don't like Assassin's Initiate. I don't want to have to be paying for it. That kind of sucks. Circling Vultures is a bit too niche. This, unfortunately, is not legal. I think we might need a 2-mana one. What's a cool 2-mana one? Ooh, I do like Chronomancer. Actually, this one's vibey. We're going to add Chronomancer. This gives us a bit of synergy with our treasures that we can make off of Gonti. Because Gonti, when we cast a spell that we don't own, we make a treasure token. Chronomancer is a 1-mana, is a 2-mana for a 1/1 flyer, so it gets in the deck for that reason. But then also, we can sacrifice another artifact to draw a card, like a treasure. That's pretty vibey. Good, marvelous, love that. Right, so we're at 17 of those. Let's go down and see if there's anything else cool that stands out that we could be running. Oh, I do like Air Falcon Wrath, but this probably isn't the deck for it. Hovermere sucks. I'm not running Hovermere. Oh, okay. I like Ornithopter of Paradise. That, oh no. Again, zero power. Boo. Let's keep going down. There must be at least another cool 2-mana one here that we can look at running. Vault Scourge is technically 1 mana. So therefore we can add Vault Scourge. Vault Scourge lets us pay Phyrexian mana or 2 life. We're playing Commander, we start with 40 life, we can definitely pay it for Vault Scourge. There we go. Cool, I like this a little bit more. So we have 18 1 or 2 drops that give us that ability to hit our opponents pretty consistently. Like, yes, Reach will block the flyers, but we have some shadow creatures in here as well. Just to push that through, we have unblockable creatures with like Tormented Soul and Changeling Outcast. Love that. That's all awesome. We love that. All right, let's just paranoia check something. Pretty consistently. Hooray, the sound works. I'm normally wearing headphones for this kind of stuff, but let's go. Cool. So that is our 18 to 20 flying man. We have 18. I think that's a decent number. Let's do the easy stuff next. Let's just add the ramp. Ramp, that was what we were missing. You know, like Soul Ring and stuff. Let's add the ramp next. So, ramp. How are we going to do this? Well, let's just add the ones that we know what we want. So, Soul Ring. Arcane Signet. Is it Jet Medallion? Which one is this? Okay, that's one of the... we... 15 cards with Jet in. Right, well, we're not going to be adding the Mox Jet. What's the diamond? What's the black diamond called? A charcoal diamond. Marvellous. You can get in. So our ramp is going to be primarily on this. There is some treasure stuff that we might look at adding in a moment, but I think like the base level, we just want to be able to be consistent. We don't want to have to be faffing around with extra steps. I'm fine, basically, once you have that 8-bit base, I'm then fine doing some bigger bits on top of that, but I always just want 8 bits of just... I play this card, it is going to ramp me the next turn. That is very important. Do you agree too? Do you agree too? Thank you. Marvellous. Alright, just... artifact. Tap this permanent. Yeah, I'm sure this will get us all the mana ones, mana value. Might be too many. Let's go to... Let's, again, sort by black is what we should always do. I think we've got all the 1 mana ones that we're reasonably going to put in. Mana value equal to 2. This should simplify it down a little bit. Right. We have Arcane Signet. Armor Release Fist sucks. We're not running that. We have Charcoal Diamond. Cold Steel Heart is fine. As long as it's still cheap anyway. Ooh, Dousing Dagger kind of slaps in this deck, actually. It's an equipment that you stick onto a creature, and then when that creature connects, flips into a land that makes 3 mana. That is ramp in this deck. We love it. Again, we'll do some searching for like things that deal damage. Like that will be helpful. Right. Fractured Power Stone cares about rolling the planar die. We don't care. It's going to get in. So we have 4. So let's add in Cold Steel Heart. I know meow, right? So one of the reasons why I'm doing... Actually, we'll be good and we'll add Dousing Dagger after we get our 8 bits that are guaranteed to ramp us. We'll then add Dousing Dagger afterwards. Because that needs another card to ramp us. I will be good and concede that. One of the reasons I'm doing them with these kind of buckets, as it were, like these categories, is so that effectively you can change them out yourself. Like, I am... Most of these cards we're going through, I'm pretty positive that I own, is like the Commander staple ones. But everyone's budget is different. Everyone's playstyle is different. Liquid Metal Talk, that can get in. But effectively, you don't have to copy the exact 8 mana rocks that I'm running if you don't own them. If you own 8 other mana rocks, then run those. Same with, like, the flying creatures are a bit more niche, but fortunately, most of these are quite cheap, so you don't have to spend too much money if you want to pick up those. But, like, when we get to, like, interaction or, like, protection, that kind of stuff, there is definitely much more wiggle room. As long as you're running a card that does something similar, then that's completely fine. But you don't need to kind of copy the deck exactly, because again, yeah, everyone's budget's different, everyone's playstyle is different. Run the cards that you like. That's very important in Commander. It's something I'm always here for. Right, so we have our 8 bits of regular ramp here. Now on top of this is where we add things like the Dousing Dagger, as it's a cool card that interacts with our deck in a cool way. And I think the other one... Grim Hireling, I think it's called. Ooh, that's the dashboard. Right. It's Grim something. Where is the bugger? Grim... This is Grim Hireling. This is one that I want to add because I think it works really well with the deck. This one is a touch pricey. So again, this is a great example of a card you don't have to run if you don't have it or don't want to. Run a different bit of ramp in this spot. This is a cool one. This is whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, make 2 treasure tokens. Well, this, combined with this and Gonti, makes cards like Blightkeeper good. that is why we're going to consider, or that's why I'm going to add Grim Hireling into the list. I think it's going to be pretty solid. Yes, it's 4 mana, but it's on top of our base of other ramp. It's just going to be pretty great. So we have the base of our ramp now. One thing I do want to do, just because I think it's kind of a reason for playing a mono black deck, is black is great at ramping, specifically for black mana. And Gonti doesn't care, as we went over earlier, Gonti doesn't care the colour of mana that we make, just as long as there's a lot of it. So we're going to be adding, is it Cryptghast? Is that what it is? Cryptghast, yes. Whenever you tap a swamp for mana, add an additional black. Again, we're running this on top of our base level of mana, so we can cast this spell, and this lets us push on top of that. With this makes an ungodly amount of black mana. Also, the Extort can just kill people. We have a lot of single black pip spells in this deck. You can just drain out the table eventually with this kind of stuff. The mana production with this really adds up. So we're going to add Cryptghast. There is another one. Let's have a quick look for this. There's a couple of these actually. We'll see. Nakana Revenant. Do we want to go this deep? It's not as expensive as I thought it was. I probably own one of this. We'll add Nakana Revenant for the time being. This one might get cut later on if we need space. But this just really pushes the mana production, and because in theory, if we hit with 5 creatures, with Gonti out, we're effectively drawing 5 cards off of our opponent's decks. So just having double black mana to cast them will really lead to some really powerful and explosive late game turns, which sounds sweet and is what I'm here for. What else is in this package? We'll add the Urborg now. We are kind of jumping around a little bit, but the Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth really will help with this. It'll make all of our utility lands that we'll add later count and tap for more mana with the Nakana Revenant and the Cryptghast. The other one is Cabal Coffers. And this is a bit, I don't say the word stock, but just this is something I tend to put in most mono black decks just because it is really a reward for doing this. So Cabal Covers makes a black for each swamp we control. That with Urborg means that, oh my god, that white border is hideous. We'll be changing that in a moment. Cabal Coffers and Urborg means that all of our lands count as swamps, and that this basically is 2 and tap and make a mana for each land you control. That's really, really good. That will create us a bunch of mana to play with the spoils of our opponent's decks. So we love all that. So that's our kind of little bonus rampy package on top of the good eat your veg style of base. The next thing we need to add, let's just do the interaction. This should be pretty easy. I'm going to be a bit board wipes wise. I generally run 2 board wipes nowadays, so I'm just going to add Damnation and Toxic Deluge because I know they are generally the best. There are tons of other board wipes out there you can run. Again, this is why I'm doing it in kind of the buckets, categories things, because you can tailor this to how you want. If you don't own Damnation or Toxic Deluge or run something else, they're all fine. They all get the job done. We have the mana to play more expensive ones if we need to. That's all fine. Right, destroy target. This should be pretty straightforward. Let's do Commander. So we have our 2 board wipes. We're going to go for about 8 more bits of targeted removal. I generally run more targeted removal. I generally build my decks a bit, basically more in line with having fun games than necessarily just being raw power level. So I'd run less kind of things that stop my opponents doing things more. I tend to run more answers for them. So if I had blue in a deck, I'm less likely to run counter spells. I'm more likely to run just things that have answered the thing once they've had a chance to do it. Basically, just letting people do what they want. But that's more how I play. Again, people can play how they want. That's kind of the joy of Commander. For destroy target, we're actually going to search via EDH rank, and this will just give us the best bits of removal that are run generally in Commander. So we have Feed the Swarm, Eternal Grasp, Go to the Throat, Fell the Profane. I really like this one. This is a great little land as well. Murder still runs so highly. That's awesome. Alright, but let's just start adding these in. I don't think is there a way of... there isn't a way of copying the text on that. That's annoying. So, Feed the Swarm, Infernal Grasp, Go Through the Throat, Fell the Profane, Withering Torment. I think we're going to do those to begin with. Them printing Feed the Swarm and Withering Torment in the last 2 years. There's one that... The power creep on those is kind of wild, but just Black having the ability to answer enchantments is something very new. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Color pie be damned, I guess, but yeah, they exist. We're going to run them, but hey ho. Right, so I think this will lead us to 5 of these. So we want to run at least one more to get there. I'm probably going to look at running something like Murderous Rider as the last one, because it is a creature with fear. Fear is a very old anti-wit mechanic that I don't think they print anymore. But it says this creature can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or black creatures. So that is a form of evasion. So I always like trying to synergize things as much as possible. So we will add that as a way of synergizing with the rest of the deck. I think that brings us to 1, 2, 3, 4... 5, 6. This is the one thing about Moxfield that I don't super like, is that you can't. It's annoying to tag things on the way in. Let's just check our removal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we do have the bare minimum, but I'm gonna see if we can. I'm gonna add 2 more. So Bitter Triumph, I think, is just the best one out there. Discarding a card in a black deck is not a downside. Even if this isn't going to be too Reanimator heavy, like we have a lot of dorky 1-drops in here, that's all fine. And then probably one more. What else do we have? Oh, you're a big flyer. I could be tempted. Lethal Scheme? That kind of slaps. I think I like this. A Lethal Scheme is a 2 black for an instant with Convoke, which means we can tap creatures to help cast the spell. With all of our dorky creatures, if our opponents ever play a reach creature or something like that, we can help use them to cast Lethal Scheme, destroy the creature, and then these will get bigger as well. That I like. I think Lethal Schemes, generally with my interaction, similarly to Ramp, you want it to be kind of like on 2 or less mana. Where possible. We're in black, so we have all the best options available to us, so we can do that. But I'm kind of fine going up for more... Up in... The more mana value something costs, the more like flexibility you need. So, like, Withering Torment is an instant that also destroys an enchantment. We love that. Lethal Scheme has the Convoke. Fell the Profane can be a land if we need it to be a land at some point in the game. That I'm kind of here for. So I think we're getting there. We've got about half an hour left, about halfway through, so this is all fine. Sip of tea. Good morning, everyone. Again, lovely to see you all. Right, for those just joining, we are building Gonti Knight Minister, one of the new commands from Aether Drift. We're building it because I opened it in my sealed pool, and it seems like a lot of fun. This card's a house in Limited, by the way. Like, I think... So the card it's kind of referencing is Edric, and I think this was very quickly banned in one-on-one Commander, or like Dual Commander. I don't know if they have that down here. But yeah, very messed up card. Very, very strong. And Gonti is kind of like a mono-black equivalent of that. So, we've added our Flying Men, our Interaction, our Ramp. So I think it's card draw next. So, even though Gonti is going to give us card advantage of our opponent's decks, that requires us having the dorky flyers and Gonti in play. We still need to get to the point where we can do all that and cast all that, and that does require card draw. So, similarly to our interaction, we're going to kind of, not cheat a bit, but we are just going to go card draw in a black commander deck, and we're going to search via EDH rank and see what comes up. We're not just going to put the generic best bits in. We are going to try and search for bits that work. So I think Skull Clamp in a deck full of 1 toughness creatures seems phenomenal. That kind of has to go in. So we'll put them up here, and then we'll add our 8 in a moment. Deadly Dispute as well, I think it's just going to be great. Again, cashing in a dorky creature, or cashing in one of our opponent's creatures. We are going to be casting their creatures as well. So I think Deadly Dispute and Village Rites get in. A friend of mine had this conversation with me about a year ago about kind of like Phyrexian Arena not being that good in Magic anymore, because it is 3 mana and you wait a turn to draw a card. Like, it's fine if it comes out on turn 3, I think, but just, it doesn't, yeah, since that conversation, I'm just putting it in more and more, or no, in less and less decks, just because games don't go as long as they used to. Like, if you draw this on, or if you play this on turn 5 or 6, that's not very good. And in this deck, we're going to be wanting playing like ramp or 1 power flyers. So I just don't think Phyrexian Arena or Black Market Connections get in anymore. Not in this build anyway. We're looking for kind of to be a bit more explosive. So we are going to run things like Sign in Blood and Night's Whisper. We are going to run Idol of Oblivion, because this will trigger off of the treasures that we make with Gonti. Basically, if there is a deck I can run Idol of Oblivion in, I do generally run it, because this is... Effectively, this is a 2-mana Phyrexian Arena. It's going to be easier to cast. Again, actually, I win mono black, so that doesn't really matter, but it does have the late game upside of making a 10/10 as well. That's kind of where we are in Commander nowadays. So I think we are going to stick Idol of Oblivion in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6. Let's add Night's Whisper and maybe Read the Bones here. I'm also a little bit... I generally run more card draw than I think you need to. I'm looking at you, Necropotence. And I'm here for it. Alright, we're going to add Necropotence. Again, you do not need to... This is very much I am building the deck for me right now. I'm going to add a Necro because it's kind of dumb and stupid and a reason to be playing mono black. We don't get to play broken cards like Necropotence all the time because of the mana cost. We're going to try and run it today. I think it's awesome. And then lastly, we will top this up with 1 more card. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 1 more card. Let's... let's do... I'm doing Grim Horror Specs or another Corrupted Convention style of card. Let's just go Grim Horror Specs. We have a lot of 1-mana ones already, so let's add Skull. So this is our card draw, so we have 1 with Skull Clamp. We have 2 for Deadly Dispute. We have 3 with Village Rites. We have 4 with Sign in Blood. 5 with Night's Whisper. 6 with Idol of Oblivion. Ooh, not tips. We don't need tips. We know what we're doing. That's another Night's Whisperer. So we're going to be on 9, actually. So we might need 1 more after this. We have the biggie. We have Necropotence, obviously. Grim Horror Specs. So yeah, I think I've said it on the channel before. I generally run... We'll add the Corrupting Conviction. I generally run more card drawn interaction than I think is really necessary. But that's just because I generally find that it means that I'm always doing things in games. Like, same with ramp. Like, having, 10 bits of ramp here. 10 bits of ramp, 10 bits of card draw, 10 bits of interaction just means you're going to be doing stuff in a game. You're going to be affecting it more. Yes, you have less kind of impactful 6 drops, basically. But just your deck is so much more consistent and you get to play more Magic. And that's kind of... I don't get to play Commander as much in person as I used to anymore. So being able to just guarantee I'm involved in playing in the games is really important to me. So I think that's cool. So that's kind of how I've kind of adjusted my deck building. Again, these are rough categories, that kind of stuff. You can adjust as you want. And I will, probably not in this video, probably at some point in the next couple of hours, or probably on my lunch break, if I'm honest with you, kind of go through and tag these and make sure that that these are also in categories. So again, you can swap them out as you need. So we're on 53. So we're coming to the end. So we need we need some protection and maybe a bit of treasure matters and then some win cons. So let's quickly do protection. So this does seem like a Lightning Greaves, Swiftfoot Boots kind of deck. Then I think we also want some Undying effects. So we want Undying Evil. There are better ones of these. But I just want to get some stuff in. Creature, die, return. I know 100% I want the one that's a land. That just goes in so many. That's not how you spell battlefield. If one thing has come out of this video, we're definitely shattering the illusion that I know how to spell. But here we go. Yeah. So Malakir Rebirth. Love this card. Again, with this, the deck kind of doesn't function that well if we don't have Gonti in play. So we're going to be running all of these. I think that brings us up to maybe about 6 or so. It's not like we can run counter magic. We are effectively doing this as a way of keeping Gonti alive and around. I think I might also stick in like a Animate Dead or something like that just as a backup, or maybe one of the recursive ones. What's it called? Phyrexian Reclamation. I might just add this one as well. I do like this. Torch Resistance really needs a reprint, doesn't it? That's gone up in price massively. Yeah, I think we'll call it Phyrexian Reclamation. This is a repeatable way of getting a creature back. So it's quite nice with our 1-drops, because we can trade off 1-drops, pay 2 mana and 2 life to return it back to our hand, and then just cast it again, because it's like 3 mana to get these creatures back from the dead. Seems actually pretty solid. So we are actually running out of room here. So there were some cuts we were... What the hell is this? I need to find a way to set Moxfield to first printing. If you know how to do that, please let me know in the comments at some point. That would be fantastic. Thank you. So we are actually running out of room here. We do have 1 land already. No, we have 2 lands already. So we have 59. We kind of want to be around 66. So let's... I think win cons is the most important thing next. Let's look at win cons. There's one win con I want to run. So black... So other colours of decks do get an overrun effect, and it's Graz. This is a big beefy lad. 8 generic mana for a 7/5. Juggernauts you control attack each combat if able. Sort of relevant. Juggernauts you control can't be blocked by walls, but other creatures you control have base power and toughness 5/3 and are Juggernauts in addition to their other creature types. So why this is phenomenal is because it makes Balefly Swarm a 5/3. And that will actually kill people. So a lot of this deck is going to be finding win cons and playing with our opponent's decks. But obviously we do still want ways of winning the game in our own deck. I think that's important. So let's add in Graz. There's a couple of other things I wanted to look at. Sorry, I made some notes. Let's have a quick look of cards I want, things to search for. So we do want to get a bit of opponent's own synergy in here, because we are going to be... That is not how you spell the word opponents. Alright, for tomorrow, we're going to have a cup of tea before we start, and then one during the stream. That seems like a correct level of caffeine. The cat's sleeping in the corner. Right, so here we have the Gonti. What was the card I was thinking of? Opponent owns, not opponent's owns. 1 second. There's a couple of cards here that have been printed recently. So, yeah, this was it. Brainstealer Dragon. We'll load up this one. And then... Let's quickly have a look. Thieving Amalgam. These are the... Oh, there's Tiny Bones as well. Oh, Tiny Bones could go in the deck. I forgot Death Touch's Sort of Evasion. No, I don't like that. Right. These kind of cards I think are sweet. So Brainstealer Dragon is 7 mana for a 6/6 flyer. Those do win games as well. At the beginning of your end step, exile the top card of each opponent's library. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. If they cast a spell this way, you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast it. So it's a double-upping effect, sort of Gonti. It gives us advantage from our opponent's decks. But why we're importantly running it is whenever a non-land opponent and opponent controls enters the battlefield under your control, they lose life equal to its mana value. That's my alarm. Right, so this effectively will drain out that opponent whenever we cast one of their spells. That's great, that will kill people, we love that. The next one is Thieving Amalgam. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you manifest the top card of that player's library. Again, we're stealing their stuff. We love that. And whenever a creature you control but don't own dies, which is a creature we're going to be casting off our opponent's decks, its owner loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So that's also phenomenal. We're going to add that in. Right, so we're on 64. We've probably got... I think we're going to get to 66 non-land spells. Oh, sorry. 66 non-lands. We have 2 in already, so that means we're actually on 62, so we have 4 more slots. So this is the point where we are going to go to EDH Rec and just look at, see if there's anything obvious that we've missed. Because we are a bit high on things like card draw, and we are definitely a bit high on ramp, that those might be some areas where we cut. So as I mentioned at the start, I don't like starting on EDH Rec, just because just decks kind of just become way too similar. If you just take the top 100 cards from EDH Rec, this is kind of a bit more... We made them themselves. I don't think we would end up with maybe Dowsing Dagger or with I Witch if we went this way. But hey, let's just see what there is. Oh, I do like this card. I'm not sure about this card in this deck. Maybe it might be good, but this is one of my favourite cards from the set. I think it's awesome. Ooh, some of this... Start Your Engines does seem quite good in this deck, actually. Cool, yeah. A bunch of the stuff we already have. So yeah, Tiny Bones Pickpocket might be one that we could consider. That's an upgrade for Eye Collector. I will admit this Mythic from last year is better than Eye Collector, but those are kind of changes you can make as you would like. Let's see if there's anything that stands out. Ooh, Thieving Varmint is kind of funny. 2 mana, 2/1, pay 1 life, add 2 mana of any 1 colour. Spend this to only cast spells you don't own. That could get in over a Mana Rock. What's the worst one? It's going to be Cold Steel Heart, isn't it? Let's cut Cold Steel Heart. And add Thieving Varmint as a bit of ramp. Oh, Gix. Right, this is a massive miss, actually. This is one of the reasons we should check EDH Rec. Gix is whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may pay 1 life if they do draw a card. This is actually effectively a copy of Edric. This does really need to come in. Let's add Gix, and we're probably cutting one of our other card draw spells. What's the worst one? So it's probably just going to be... Probably Read the Bones. This seems like the most replaceable. It's also the most expensive, and it's a sorcery, so get out. Alright. We could just run original Gonti. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, Game Changers. Oh, they put them here now. Ooh. Bola Citadel should be a game changer. That does kind of slap. Let's just see if there's anything obvious that we've missed. I can't be asked to read that card. If it's good. Ooh, Gary. Gary is a win con. We're in a mono black deck. I think we need to run it. Or it's good to run. It's good to have just ways of cheesing your opponents out of a game, and Gary is definitely one of those. We have a couple more left. Ooh, okay. Some more win cons here. Mirkwood Bats and Marionette Apprentice. These are kind of treasury matters cards, so this will drain our opponent whenever we make a treasure off of Gonti. We like that. And Marionette Apprentice will drain out our opponents whenever we sacrifice a treasure, which we love. So I think let's add those, and I think that's probably... Oh, actually no, there's the big... We need the big removal spells, I think. So we're not going super hard with the treasure, but we are... The commander makes it, therefore we can run it. Let's quickly jump to sorcery, so I think there is... I'm assuming it must be in here. My computer is starting to... make noise. Right. Exsanguinate is getting in, and I think that's where we're going to lead the deck. These are our win cons. So the last couple of... So Exsanguinate will just kill all of our opponents. Exsanguinate combined with things like Cabal Coffers and Urborg makes us so much mana. I think you just need to run it in a mono black deck, especially like if you can. Obviously, Cabal Coffers and Urborg are pricey cards, or you can proxy them. Or if you're going to buy them, use our TCG player affiliate link. I keep needing to tell people about that. But I am also aware that we're live at 8:49 GMT, which isn't the time Americans tend to be online. But if you're watching the VOD, please consider using our TCG player affiliate link. That'll be down below if you're thinking of buying this deck. Marvellous. I think we're pretty close. Let's just jump to lands. So we're not just going to jam in 42 basic lands. Let's add the Bajuka Bog. Ooh, Rogue's Passage does seem good in here, getting Gonti through. Cabal Stronghold kind of isn't worth... It's not worth 16 quid. War Room, fantastic, we love that. That is worth that amount of money. That's worth 4 quid. Access Tunnel is good. Maybe if we steal a creature from our opponent's deck. What else is fun and slaps? I don't think I've read this card. I don't care. Ooh, Blinkable Nexus becomes a flyer. That kind of works. We are just looking for lands that kind of do cool and interesting things. So we either want them to make us flyers, or we want them to have some kind of cool utility, like bringing a creature back to our hand. So maybe that's what Witch's Cottage can do. I think that's a pretty good shout. As we are a mono-black deck, I am actually going to... In at least monocolored decks, where you have the room for them, I'm going to add the cycling lands in these colors. I think they're just good. They're not the most explosive cards, but just adding some a bit more consistency to your deck. So let's add Barrenmoor and Polluted Mire. That seems pretty good. Oh, yeah, actually, the Start Your Engine ones, we'll load up those in a sec, because they seem pretty solid. So the Start Your Engine one seems pretty good in this deck, because we're actually going to be consistently hitting our opponents. So I think it was actually these ones. Target reach against haste, that seems fine. Abershgar Raceway, definitely. Discard your hand, draw a card. Maybe not, actually. This one, the Maganda Raceway, the rare. We'll run the rare. Let's add you in. Actually, there's a couple of other cards I've thought that we actually might need to add. Let me just have a swig of tea. But, because... So, Gonti, importantly, lets us cast spells from our opponent's decks. And the treasure will help with some of the fixing if they have activated abilities. But some cards our opponents will be running, we might not be able to activate the abilities of. So there's a couple of cards we're going to add just to our lands to help with this. The first one is Yavimaya? So, I know what you're thinking. This is a green card. This is not actually a green card. There's no green mana symbol, or there's no green identity on it. We're going to run a Yavimaya, which will make all of the lands in play forests. This means that we can activate any green activated abilities on cards that we steal of our opponents with Yavimaya. It's niche, it might not come up, but it's vibey, we're going to run it. It's gone down a bit in price. If you have one, this is a nice to add. The other ones we're going to add are... City... Let's have a look. City of Traitors? No, that's not it. City of Brass. City of Brass. So yes, it does 1 damage to us when we tap it, but we add 1 mana of any colour. Again, this is great for activating abilities of cards that we steal off of our opponents. And then it's Mana Confluence. Mana Confluence, similar card, technically different. A friend of mine was thinking of building a deck where this was where you gift someone City of Brass and then tap it for them. They don't generate the mana, but they get pinged for 1. Josh, if you're watching, please build that at some point. That sounds hilarious. But I think we're actually coming to an end now. I think we're going to round this off with swamps. 20 of them. Why is the swamp £1.50? Because it's... Why did you pick the most expensive one? Add more. Add 9. We'll add 19. There is a world where we cut some a few utility lands to just buff up the swamp count, but I think I'm pretty happy with this. Let's actually just make this a bit bigger. Importantly, because we're going to be good, let's have a look down and look at the curve. I'm assuming it's going to be phenomenal. Like, you don't see curves like this all the time. Just one thing about ramming your deck full of 1-drops and 2-drops is that it means the curve is going to be pretty good. Yeah, you can see that that's kind of unnormally phenomenal. You have a 61 chance of playing these on curve. Yes, this is oddly all the 4-drops we have in the deck, but yeah, curve-wise, this is great. There is a world where actually we might... Actually, I'm fine with this because of this specific deck, because of the way that this is working. We are trying to just play as many of these as possible before we get... Basically, yeah, as I mentioned at the start, the game plan is turns 1 to 3, get at least one bit of ramp out and play as many 1 or 2 drop unblockable or basic creatures as possible. Then play Gonti on turn 4, swing with everything we have in play, draw a bunch of cards off of our opponent's decks, and then use those to kill our opponents. We're going to keep doing that repeatedly with the rest of our basic creatures from our deck. And then we can keep the board in check, destroy any blockers or any key spells from our opponents with our interaction. We can use things like Brainsealer Dragon and Thieving Amalgam to help drain out our opponents when we're casting spells off their decks. We have big cards like Necroponents to just draw us a bunch of cards if we ever really need to refill our hand. We have cards to protect our commander with things like Undying Evil and Undying Malice. These are going to be great at keeping Gonti around. Or... these are all under owner's control, so these won't work with the things we're stealing, unfortunately. There might be one of them that says under your control. I don't remember entirely. That's a whole separate deck. But we also have things like Graz, which is the overrun of this deck, as well as things like... it's a 2-drop, I'm guessing. Where is the spell that drains them out? The big X spell, it's in here somewhere. Let's not worry about it. Exsanguinate. Exsanguinate is the backup win con, really, in this deck. If we cast this at any point after turn 8, we're probably just killing everyone. It's a nice backup to have. Cool. So I think this deck's actually really fun. As I mentioned, so currently this is just in the curve order. Nothing's tagged. I will tag this up so that it goes into these... buckets into these categories, and yeah, remember, you can swap out what you want. Again, this is one of the joys of Commander, is that while I've put a bunch of stuff on screen here, there are alternatives, there are cheaper cards that do work. Like, you don't need to run Yavimaya. I'm doing it because I'm being needless, and I think I own one, so that's kind of why it's there. Again, make this your own, and also let me know if you're thinking of building this. Yeah, Gonti is one of the vibiest ones from the set. Yeah, as I mentioned, I opened it in pre-release, so that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to build it today. But I think that's where we're going to leave it. We have about 2 minutes until I need to start the day job. Enough time to refill the tea, feed the cat, and yeah, get myself set. But thank you all very much for watching. Yeah, I had a few people jumping in. Do feel free to chat and stuff in the future, that kind of stuff. I did turn on subscriber only mode. Maybe that was on me, actually. Maybe we'll look at turning that off for tomorrow. Because, yeah, this went pretty well. My throat is starting to feel it a little bit. And that might be more reason to have more liquids before we start recording. Also, yeah, first time I'm saying this. It's an estimated bracket 1. Boo. Okay, this does seem like quite a good... I think this deck is stronger than a estimated bracket 1, purely because we're going to be playing with a lot of our opponents' game changers and that kind of stuff. A way of buffing up the power level of this deck is, yes, adding more tutors to make it more consistent. That's just a generic thing you can do in Commander to make it more consistent. The game changers, I think we looked at like Bolus's Citadel or Vampiric Tutor would just be easy ones if you do want to buff this up. But honestly, because the mana value, just because the curve of this is so good, you're going to be doing so much stuff with this deck. I think it's sweet. But sorry. Anyway, this is where we need to leave it. Thank you all very much for the first Too Sweet MTG live stream. Again, let me know what you all thought. Let me know if you have any comments. Also, let me know if there's any other decks you'd like me to build, either from Aether Drift or from an older set, and we'll check a look. I will check them out. That's one thing about doing it live. I can't redo the ending that I always end up fluffing. But anyway, until tomorrow, enjoy the rest of your days, and we'll see you all soon. Goodbye.